What would you say you do here?
Okay, we're live once again. Yeah, we're back. So if you, I heard from a couple of people, some people hung in there till the end. I think that was the longest show last week we had to date with Pete. Oh, actually, Lisa, we had Lisa's benchmark of growth, but prior to the birthday bash, the last live show we had. Yeah, so I worked for, like I said, and I think the Intentional Restorer article will be coming out this week, and been working on for a long time getting Pete on the show. So bridging the modern restorers with our history. Hopefully you took a lot from that, and will connect with. We've got some really some key contributors that have helped bring the industry to where it is. And it's important to recognize that and understand that. And so that was a lot of fun. There's a recap video on the YouTube page if you want to watch that. We brought up Bob Packrell's book, The Reading List. Obviously, we got our two, books, I guess you could call them. But another book has popped up. Actually, I'm going to run our little promo video real quick. Why am I holding this piece of paper? A printout of a book that I have a copy of from the author. It's the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Read this book. It didn't take very long, very well written, easy to read. One of the tips, I'll get to in a minute why I've got a piece of paper in my hand and not the actual book. One of the tips, and get a pen and paper out. Chapter 9 includes do's and don'ts of social media posting. So many of you are like, I don't know what to do on social media. And pet peeve of mine, you spend a lot of time advertising to your competitors. Dumb.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
Instead of advertising to your competitors, dumb. Listen to this. Use the 80-20 rule for marketing messages. Put out 80% information and 20% marketing. That and many other tips from this book. We also have a giveaway. That's right, a giveaway. And a giveaway. That's right, a giveaway. You've seen us on Instagram at Hug Your Books, right? David Princeton, friend of the show.
Book hug moment.
Advocate Claim Service. Hug Your Books. Original book hugger in the house.
Gotta hug the book. We got the hugger in the house.
Okay. This is what I want you to do. Print out, if you don't have a copy of the book, print out a piece of paper. That's why I got the paper. See, it's intentional. And just a picture of yourself hugging that piece of paper.
Book hug moment.
Go to Instagrams. Go to @HugYourBooks. Tag @Ironclad Restoration Marketing. Tag @the DYOJO. Use the hashtag HugYourBooks. You can also post this on LinkedIn. Entry per original post on Instagram, entry per original post on LinkedIn, but you can have as many people in your family, as many people in your company post as you'd like. Let's help prop this up. This is a no BS guide. It's no BS. It's no BS. And then join us. Ben will be giving away a box that he normally gives to onboarding new clients, which includes Ironclad Restoration Marketing swag. And then join us for the show this Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. We will be talking with Doug Irwin, Senior Vice President, Strategy and Growth at Onsite Restoration Services, talking about the phases of growth in your career development.
Anyway, it's a party, and I want the whole family there.
We're having a party?
No.
And Doug's experience with what it takes to go through those phases to develop yourself and your career to be ready to connect, collaborate, and conquer on your shared goals. So join us, the DYOJO podcast, live Thursday. Ben, the author of this book, is going to be there. Enter to be a part of our giveaway. We'll announce the winner next week. Hug your books. Boom. There it is.
Here I am.
Here you are, Ben. Okay, well, we've been talking about for a while having you on the show, and we finally were able to make it happen. I want to say we're not promoting this. You're not paying us. You nailed it. It is a no BS guide, right? I mean, it's even if you're dumb, you can understand it, which is, I mean that as a compliment, because that was the goal we tried to do with the estimating book, is like, hey, what are the books? The Dummies Guide.
Dummies. Yeah, the name was taken, so we had to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, obviously you're trying to grab some attention, right? Yeah. So what kind of led up to writing the book?
Well, so everything we do here, I run a company called Ironclad Restoration Marketing, and we specifically market and help restoration companies get more leads from the internet.
Yep.
Most simple way we can put it. So, what we found, and I'm sure you can attest to this, and what most people out there listening to this, and anybody that owns a restoration company, there's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to digital marketing, especially in the restoration industry. And it's such a high ticket, and it's very expensive. So we want to just cut through the noise. And one of the best ways to cut through the noise is, be a little controversial, but it really, hopefully it rang true, like you mentioned, that there is no BS in this book at all. It's a step-by-step guide to how to market your business. And if anything, it's empowers you with knowledge to, if you're going to hire a company like us, at least that you have something there as a guide to make sure that they're keeping things on the up and up for you, and you're actually maximizing your marketing dollar.
Yeah, 100%. So it's the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. I think there's a lot of horror stories, right? There's plenty of contractors who have hired this guy, hired that company, hired on this promise, and just been taken to the cleaners, right?
Yes.
And you talk about that in the book. And I think that's one of the great aspects of it, is not only will it inform you to some degree how you can do it for yourself or set up a lot of those foundational items, but it'll give you a lot of information to kind of weed through the BS, right? To know if you're being BS'd by somebody. What's anything we're missing there? Somebody listening, they're on the verge of trying to hire somebody, whether it's your company or one of the others out there. What are a few key things that people should know when you're trying to hire a legitimate company to help you?
Yeah, one thing that helps is, ask for references. Look, we do it. We have it done to us. You do it if you have a restoration company. They're gonna vet you out. So make sure you do your due diligence on the company. There's a million and millions of digital marketing agencies out there. Yeah. And I'd say there's only a handful that are actually doing what they say they're going to do, or doing something that's effective, because the services are so ambiguous. It's like telling somebody you could build a house, like, hey, build me a house. And then you end up in a Zoolander position where it's a house. So yeah, I mean, technically, so technically, you did get a house. They built you a house. They did SEO, they did some social. But it's more so about what's going to be effective for a service-based industry like the restoration industry. So if do your homework, read the book, get the Kindle version, ask us, following us on social. All I care about is providing so much value out there for contractors to do it themselves, and little tips and tricks that you can do to make sure that you're on the right track. So outside of that is actually trying to get the company to help you understand what the data means. Yeah. Most of the time you're going to get some report and they're going to say, oh, everything's looking great. And, at the end of the day, it's really about, is your phone ringing or not? Are you getting these sales? Are you getting more leads? And, what are you doing to get those leads? So, transparency is huge. And bigger than that, I'll throw it back on the restoration contractor, is consistency. Yeah. All right. Nothing in the world these days is direct response, especially when it comes to digital marketing. So, not just trying something for a month and then thinking the company's crap and leaving. I mean, this is a relationship in a partnership you're supposed to be forming with a marketing company, just like hiring somebody. Right. So, empowering yourself with knowledge, it kind of leads to those other things. And I see it a lot in your industry, the microwave society, they're Snap, they're moving on to different marketers, and you're not going to ever win that way. You have to be consistent, and that's across the board with anything you do marketing wise for your business.
Well, and that's the what is it? The caviar taste on the the anchovy budget or whatever, right? I mean,
pockets, yeah.
yeah. And you got to do the long haul and understand there's so many friggin' restoration companies out there. To make a splash is like you said, it's going to take time and it's going to take money, right? We go into a kitchen and they want it remodeled. They want their dream kitchen that they saw in Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? And it's like, well, if you have the time and the money, we can make it happen.
100%, yeah. And it's about perpetually filling this lead timeline. You want to be able to just consistently, and something we preach here that's in the book is we call it the digital omnipresence method. So people ask a lot, hey, what can we do to do this? And it's kind of like a loaded question because you kind of have to do it all. You can't build a kitchen, like you said, without doing the plumbing. You can't do the kitchen without doing the floors. I mean, so there's so many moving parts. And I released this book, I think, early January of this year. We worked on it all year last year. I'm already working on part 2 because there's 5 or 6 things in there that's completely different now. Even Facebook.
It's already evolved.
It just changes. So it's good and it's good practice for us. And the best thing you can do out there if you want the free tips is just check out our Instagram, Facebook, our YouTube. We do just like you do. We're just trying to provide as much value out there to prevent people from getting ripped off and really try to, help the industry out a little bit.
Well, and that's, I think, another thing to look for in the industry is people that are giving back. You helped contribute to an article we wrote. I think that was last year. It might have been even longer. Tips and tricks and those kinds of things. So I really enjoyed the page 83. You got the do's and don'ts of posting, right? Everybody's like, what should I do? A pet peeve of mine, I mentioned in the intro video. So many restoration companies seem to be just marketing to other restoration companies, right? I don't remember exactly the book I read. I think it had sumo in the title or something like that, but it said, if everybody else is doing it, don't, when it comes to marketing, and that's one of the organic ways you can make a splash, right? And it's very hard to be unique, right?
Sure. There's a lot of noise online, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta cut through. And the other thing you have to realize about, especially in the service-based industry, is people aren't using social media necessarily to find a service. If you need, if your kitchen's flooding, you're not going on Facebook and be like, holy shit, I got to find somebody that can come in here and fix this right away. No, you're going to go to a Google. But where social media comes into play, and when we talk about the do's and don'ts, again, I'm gonna go back to consistency. Right. A lot of times, especially in this industry, people are just checking that box. Maybe they have somebody in your office that's just throwing up a post here and there, but you have to be careful and you have to be purposeful, intentional. Just, take a page out of your book. You have to be intentional. You have to have a purpose. So kind of mapping this stuff out, having a clear plan is step one. Calendarizing your posts is another great idea. But more so, you just got to do it. It's a great way for people to vet you out. And what the book mentions is top of mind mentality. While people aren't going on Facebook or Instagram to find a property restoration, they are going to see your stuff. And if you're active and you're showing your the work that you do, client testimonials, which is, we talked about the 80-20 thing. You want to have 80% of your information be value-based. Yeah. What do people do if they find mold in their house? Not if you found mold, call us. Of course, they're going to call somebody, but value. Start with the blogs. Hopefully, you're doing SEO. If you're worrying about social media marketing, hopefully you have that foundation of SEO and pay-per-click running, so you have blogs to back it up and give them some information. So we've got the book. I got a copy of the book. People, are just chomping at the bit. They're beating the doors down. I mean, I have a lot of the door because people are trying to get a hold of this. We've got the giveaway. We haven't announced yet when we're doing the giveaway, but you got a real sweet swag box with Ironclad that will include the book. So we're asking people go to, make a post. If you don't have the book yet, let's hug some books and make a post on the Instagrams, so all the kids can see it. And because that's who buys books is kids. Yeah. Pretty soon we'll be able to download one right into your memory bank, and you can just. I'm waiting for that to happen. Well, we any other closing thoughts for our tens of listeners? Yeah, for all you. I mean, I don't know if they're all going to be able to hear me at the same time with everybody clamoring, but the biggest thing I'll say is, if you're a business owner, you have to take some ownership of this stuff. Follow guys like you on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. Follow us. All we're doing is providing value. If you look at our pages, I've thrown an extra surprise inside this box. If you can find somewhere where we're overly asking for you to call us for services, we're here to help. And I can spend hours of time putting these videos and decks, and we do webinars all the time for free I mean, the information's out there. So just be consistent is the biggest thing I can say, and use as many resources as you can, and don't trust anybody. Don't listen to any guarantees. Everybody out there is going to guarantee. No such thing as guarantees in this world, and more so in this world. And you can see that on our Instagram page. We have a couple videos about that because it comes up a lot.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. The No BS guide, it's on Amazon, obviously on your website, Ironclad Restoration Marketing. Thank you, Ben, for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this for a while, and keep doing your thing out there. You're doing a killer job.
Awesome, man. Thank you. So
I'll hug them up.
Yep, hug up the books.
Sitting on books right now, so go ahead and pick them up. We'll be doing some giveaways on the book outside of this swag box as well. So hopefully we can get DYOJO involved and create a good community of valued resources out there.
Awesome, man. Reading lists. All right. Thanks, man.
Have a great one.
So awesome. Okay. So reading lists. So we've got right now running the benchmarks of growth. Those are some recorded conversations that we had. Ben mentioned Whitney Wiseman's one of the we just released it, the one with Lisa Lavender. I think Gordie Powell is next. And so this episode, we're talking about phases of growth, your personal career development, some of those higher level positions. It's funny, soft plug, right? In the book, we talk about everybody's in the middle somewhere, right? So we hear a lot of times, you can get in that mindset that I'm stuck in the middle. I'm stuck in middle management. There's always somebody above me, and there's always, somebody below me. Even if you're at this level looking up, you think, man, if I could just get to that level, and then you just realize, there's more there, and we'll get into that in the conversation with Doug. But I wanted to read a little excerpt from the book, page 79, chapter 6. Even if you reach the peak of the ladder, that hallowed C-suite of executive leadership, you still have ownership, investors, or a board of directors to answer to. In the case of many businesses in the restoration landscape, corporate mergers and buyouts mean that you likely answer to a board within as well as a board outside of the board, investors, which we talked about with Mark Springer on the mergers and acquisitions episode. In many ways, no matter how high you have climbed on the ladder, you will always be the mid-level of something. Embracing the purpose of your planting begins with refusing to be trapped by the ladder mindset. So I'm hoping we'll be able to discuss that more. Doug and I were able to have a conversation a while back, and so I'm excited to explore these concepts a little further. So he's currently, Doug Irwin, currently the Senior Vice President, that's SVP for those that know the acronyms, of Strategy and Growth for On-Site Restoration. Our friends to the north there in Canada, north. But he talks about a passion of his is developing and implementing innovative business strategies and assembling high performance teams. So that's the goal today is we want to talk about not just being stuck in the middle, but being planted in the middle and growing your career. Drum roll, please. Here we go, Doug.
Hey,
Good morning,
John. How are you, sir?
Good. Yourself?
I'm well. Hey.
Hey.
Great book.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit. You didn't have per se a traditional trajectory into the restoration industry. Is that correct? Would that be accurate?
I would say that's fair. I actually, I didn't even know the restoration business existed, quite frankly, until I stumbled upon it. So a headhunter called me and brought me in. Before that, really, I hadn't even thought of the restoration industry. And I've been in construction most of my life. Yeah.
Well, similar. I grew up in construction, and then I answered an ad for like carpet cleaning at a Service Master. And then they're like, you should do mold remediation. Yeah, I'd love to do mold remediation. What is that? So let's explore that. So we're like we've been talking about kind of phases of growth. A lot of people listening, or reading the books. That was the purpose behind the estimating book was if you want to develop your career, right? Here's some mindset and habits that'll help you do that. So what does that look like you said you were reached out to by the headhunter, so you're an outsider, right? And you're coming in at a high level. So what does that look like? What are maybe some of the lessons you learned from the outside coming in that really helped you in the industry?
I think one of the upsides of not being a subject matter expert, John, is that you have to focus on the people. Your book here is right on the money. It's really about developing the culture and the people around you. And when you're not the subject matter expert, I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, fail or struggle at leadership because it's easy for them just to take over. Kind of push somebody to the side and just go, I'll do it myself, heck with it. And unfortunately, that might solve the short-term problem, but it's not going to solve the long-term problem.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, because exactly that, right? You're like, you're doing it wrong. I'll just, give me that wand, give me the hammer.
For sure. I think a lot of companies get into trouble thinking along that lines. They'll take their strongest technician, for example, and make them into a supervisor. Not that can't work, for sure it can. Yeah. But it's more the leadership and the people skills that are far more important. Short of doing trade work directly and obviously having foremen, etc. But when you get into the leadership side, it really does come down to the people and culture. Yeah.
Well, and the other side too is, this is the way I was trained, and this is how I had to learn it, and this is the crap I went through to get where I am. So some of that. Sometimes we talk about that in the book. You make that pledge to yourself: if I ever get to that level, I'll never be like that. And then you find yourself kind of repeating those same bad habits, right? Unfortunately. So what else, what was that like coming in as an outsider? Was there because you came in as a general manager / vice president, right?
Correct, with a company called First Onsite here in Canada. So First Onsite had just set up not 2 years earlier, John, and it was acquiring. So it wasn't a growth by greenfield strategy; it was an acquisition strategy. So probably the biggest early challenge was that the former business owners of each of the various companies that First Onsite bought were still in place. They had a 3-year buyout agreement, so they were still running the local branches. So now you're trying to lead former owners, which brings its own challenges, people that are used to being in control. So you have to set up the right level of trust and respect so that so that they know that you're there to make them successful and not the other way around. Yeah.
That kind of servant leadership approach, right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, you mentioned it earlier about stuck in the middle. I mean, as you said, everybody's got a boss, and even an owner. I mean, we still all answer to somebody. And that could be ourselves. Is that looking yourself in the mirror and being confident in that you're doing the right things for yourself? That's first and foremost.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when I was a project manager / estimator, right? I had one boss, my general manager. Mm-hmm. And I knew at that time I was with a large organization. And so I knew, observing him, if I ever get to the spot where I'm a general manager, which I wanted the opportunity to do, I knew I would then have anybody at the corporate level that wanted to make a phone call, they're now your boss for the day, right? Or for that particular moment. And so, and we get the same thing with technicians, right? They complain about doing paperwork. And then, I always tell them, it's never less paperwork. It's always more, it's more of the mundane things. And so, sometimes we have that weird, vision of, well, if I get to that level, it'll be better, and it's not better or worse. It's different, right?
It's different. Exactly. Yeah. Is that the challenges you face are just different, to your point. Yeah. And if anything, it's more. You said it well. Be careful. I tell people, be careful what you wish for, because, everything, no matter what it is, everything brings its own challenges.
Yeah. 100%. And so, okay, so you came in to the industry at the GM level. You had prior C-suite, high-level experience. Was there anything that might be helpful for people understanding, like how you're setting up your leadership team that was different? either way that you brought to the table in that regard, from being from the outside, having a different perspective, and setting up yourself for success as a leader in a new industry?
The biggest thing was finding the right people. I think, John, before you get into process, before you try to tweak things, get on the production side, you really need the right people on the bus. So for me, that was the early mark. Now, as usual with pretty much any job aside from starting your own company, you're going to inherit a certain team. So some of that means that, are these the right people? Are they pulling in the right direction? But until you get the right people on the bus and you get everybody pulling the same direction, management is just too difficult to try to manage when you've got people that are working against the flow and trying to pull the team into a different direction. So that's the first, is always analyze your people. Again, when you inherit a team, go through it. I mean, take a look at who you have and what their strengths are, and then figure out, do I need to complement that? How can I adjust my style to make them more successful?
I don't know if you feel this way, but whether you've been in the industry or not, I think you have your core values, right? There's certain things that you don't give on. But every office, every city you go to is unique, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, different markets do have different nuances to them, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, so when I was running a team in Eugene, Oregon, right, which is a much smaller market, we used to say we had more access. It was a decent job in the market, right? So we'd say, we're looking for people that can walk and chew gum, right? I got up to Seattle, and there's a broader population base, but there's so much more competition for good labor. We were like, can you walk or chew gum? And so, and not in the sense of like lowering your standards, but you have to approach it differently. I think everybody has this idea of, let's get the guy that has, or gal that has, 10 years experience and is just going to be a superstar. But you really have to, I had to shift to find people that are honest, hardworking, willing to learn, and then train them to do, what we do. Can you speak to a little bit, like you come into an office and it's going to be the case if somebody's new to leadership, you're going to get resistance, right? That shouldn't be shocking. Hopefully somebody's prepared you. Everybody's going to resist you at some level or not. And then how do you go through that process of determining whether somebody's winnable or somebody, even if they may be very skilled, may not be the right fit, and and need to encourage them to pursue their career journey elsewhere?
Well, I'll tell you, there's nothing quicker than the speed of trust, John. I mean, that's, you mentioned values. While that may burn you on occasion, and therein you take action thereafter, I think you have to come in thinking that everyone is going to be on the team and is going to roll in the right direction, and have them prove you wrong is the big thing. So if you come in expecting people to fail, or expecting that they're the wrong people, they're probably going to turn out to be just what you expected. So,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. You need to, again, just like with yourself, you need to see your future self, and you need to see your future team. And, once people feel that level of trust, and for sure, when anybody comes in, there's always a little bit of, who are they and how do they operate, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I think, back to your book on culture, is that, you have to build that culture and I think people build a culture that, how would I put it? It starts at the top. I came into Onsite here, and thankfully, Craig is still the CEO. The original founder of the company is 42 years with the business.
Wow.
And, he has created a culture over time that is absolutely fantastic. I've never been on a better team. Yeah.
Well, and that's huge, right? Knowing, I can remember I got to an assignment and I was having an issue with an employee performance that was one of the golden children, right? And so I had to go to my direct report and say, hey, I'm having this issue. This is the road we're going down. I just need to know that you have my back if this is what we need to do. And because there's nothing worse than, running some course of discipline and then getting the rug swept out from under you.
Yeah, for sure.
It impacts everybody else moving forward, right?
Yeah.
You just don't have any credibility.
Well, no, that's true. I mean, you obviously need support. Back to what I was saying about trust, right? If you're if you're an entry level manager and you're trying to your point, you're trying to discipline. Well, the first conversation I would tell you to have, which you did, is with your manager or your leader to make sure everybody's on the same page. But I think that's the same in anything. Again, whether you mentioned before, you're always somewhere in the middle, but make sure that you've got support. Make sure everybody's aligned before you take action. And as far as disciplining, I mean, that's just a matter of making sure people understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. Until you actually make them aware, you can't really expect them to change.
Yeah. There needs to be a process, right? And it needs to be consistent, clear and consistent, right? I'm going to take a quick break and pay some bills. We'll be right back. Let's see. Do you feel like you live in a world where everyone and everything is hitting you all at the same time with their urgent demands?
In a word, chaos.
What does an intentional restorer do to keep themselves organized and their upward mobility on the tracks? Friends, it's time to calm the chaos. Get your team organized and focus where it matters, growing your business. iRestore.io, the restoration company management software from iRestore, powering your vision, values, and leadership. Request a demo. Here's the features. We got job management, relationship management, aka CRM, equipment management, vehicle management, human resources, and scheduling. Request a demo. All you gotta do is click, no obligation. Check it out.
You follow all instructions and you set it and forget it.
iRestore. Don't just take our word for it or iRestore's word for it. Here's a customer review. As a small business owner in a unique industry, I am glad we chose iRestore for our go-to project management system. Their team has been great with understanding our needs and providing prompt customer service. I love having direct contacts when I need them and the same support staff to work with. Being able to ask for little changes that allow our processes to work within the system has been great instead of having to adapt to a system's processes. iRestore. Are we live?
I can't do it.
We're live? Oh, okay, we're live.
Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay. Yeah, you might be noticing new prop, right? In my eye receptacles.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So people are asking, John, intentional restorer guy, why are you wearing such cool shades? And I say, these things that I spent $20s of dollars on in my DYOJO podcast and book writing money at Be Intentional Culture. We've been hanging out with some cool people, some cool cats.
He's the least cool guy I've ever met.
We met with 6 different entrepreneurs, business owners at various levels of their companies from all around the country, mostly restoration companies. And we asked them, what are some of the things, what are some of the benchmarks of growth, benchmarks of growth, where they hit a point they realized as a leader, as a company, as a leadership team, as an organization, they need to do something different to get to that next benchmark. Good question. We've got Lisa Lavender, Gordy Powell, Tammy Berklid, Whitney Wiseman, O.P. Alvarez, and Andrew Golkin. As always, our cool kids, helping you shorten your dang learning curve. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
To be
Honey?
Not 100% sure where that quote came from, because who's really all that into skinning cats anyways? And then where do these people meet to compare concepts for skinning said cats? But I digress. Okay. We're done with that silliness now. Okay, so we talked about you came in at the GM level, and then next was, do I understand correctly, more of like a regional position?
At first on site, yeah, I just kept on growing as far as territory goes, and as you mentioned, now I'm SVP here in on-site.
So what is you got, like you had mentioned, that a lot of the typical progression is an estimator, project manager. Somebody does well in some area, right? Usually it has to do with bringing in money, making it rain, right? Mm-hmm. And then we say, wow, you're doing really well by yourself, making it rain, responsible for yourself and your own priorities. And now we're going to make you a manager of people. So here you go. And so you've already touched on, like the servant leadership and the speed of trust. I really like that. Nothing quicker than the speed of trust. What does that look like now? You're a general manager managing a local office to now being a regional manager managing other general managers at various locations.
Well, leading leaders is certainly different. Again, back to, you have to establish that trust. Now you're a long ways away too, so you've got the virtual element. COVID has probably been actually a pretty good help for teaching people those skills. Is that we've now all had to work our way into a virtual lifestyle. So that'll help. But certainly leading leaders, there's a level of respect that needs to be there. That you have to give people autonomy to make their own decisions. And again, but in the end, John, it's no different than being an entry-level leader, in that you need to be managing down way more than you're managing up. You mentioned people worried about going up the ladder, et cetera. Well, if that's your only concern, you're probably not going to go very far. I mean, the way to get recognized by people like me or others, and when you get tapped on the shoulder to continue to expand responsibilities, is because you've been making other people around you successful, and they're singing the praises for it. I mean, nobody's going to resist, let me put it that way, or you mentioned before, pulling against the current, unless they feel like that's just not the right direction. So, that's the key, is making sure that everybody believes in the vision and everybody's buying into it, that you have the respect and the trust, and you will find mountains can move.
Managing down, not up. I think that's interesting. Like you said, building that trust. And that's a great point with the resistance. If somebody's resisting you, typically there's a reason, right? And maybe that's, you haven't communicated as clearly as you thought you had, or tied it in a way that they see it as beneficial, right? And the same thing can apply at a regional manager, right? Now you've been in the industry, you've been a successful GM enough to the point to where somebody's obviously promoted you to manage other managers. How do you resist that temptation? You talked about autonomy. When a manager's having an issue, to not now step in and take over, or say an office is struggling, right?
And that has happened. So we have had where a local branch manager has left, or whatever might have happened. So you do. I mean, you step in and you take it for the team, if you like. The downside, of course, and good incentive to build the right team is that takes a lot of effort, and it ends up pulling away from the rest of the team. But there too, when you have strong leaders in place, and you can leave them for a while. Essentially, I look at leadership as making yourself redundant, John. It's too often, again, people come in with as a subject matter expert, and they try to hold that knowledge in, thinking that, they'll never let me go if I'm so important, right?
Yeah.
Well, you might last in a certain very specialized industry. Software might be one, etc. So you might be that person, that senior engineer, if you like. But from a leadership standpoint, it's the exact opposite. Is that if people make the decisions based on the data and the issues in the same way that you would, they might not make the same decision, but they're looking at it from the same perspective, then you've done your job.
Well, I think it's a Zig Ziglar quote, and I'm botching it, but something to the effect of, if you help everybody else achieve their objectives, you'll find that you achieve yours, right? And so, that's, I think it's a great tool for marketing too. We opened up kind of talking about marketing, and that's find out what your customers want to accomplish, especially if you're marketing to agents or adjusters, those kinds of things. But the same thing in the organization, at the entry levels, whether you're a technician or a new supervisor, make your boss's job easier is the way to get, it's an easy way for you to understand your role and trajectory, but also to communicate to your team, right? If you want to promote, make other people's jobs, or adjusters, right? Make their job easier tends to help. But how does that, maybe, can you speak to what would, I guess maybe taking a step back to the general manager role, what is there a few things that maybe general managers would like those that they're leading to understand about their responsibilities and in relationship to developing your own career, right?
I think, if anybody wants to advance, let me put it that way, one of the first things they need to do, aside from entry level, is learn the language of finance. Is that you need to be able to talk, and as you talk up, if you like, as you move higher and higher in any organization, data and finance becomes a much bigger piece of the pie. So being able to talk in people's own language. So when you talk to whoever up the chain, you need to talk in their language. No different than managing down is, I talk about people accents. There's a good case in point. People don't talk with an accent, even though I know you're thinking that I sure sound like a Canadian. People hear with an accent. I hear you with an accent. So, we have to adapt and understand that people are who they are. And so as leaders, we're the ones that need to adapt to how they need us to work, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, by adapting your style, and in some cases, adapting the way you talk. So the best thing you can do from, back to your question, the best thing you can do from an employee standpoint is make them aware, is become transparent, educate and become very transparent. One of the first things I did here when I came to Onside was start having weekly meetings with various branches, and we would present, here's the finances, here's where we're at, this is where the company is at, this is where the month is at. It was a lot of transparency in today's world. Now, that was only 7 years ago, and it was quite frankly quite foreign for people in a privately owned company to be talking about financials. But to your point, now you understand. Now you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing, and here's how I read it accordingly. And that brings people up. They start talking into your language because they understand how you're looking at the world. Yeah.
Well, and would you agree that the quote, numbers don't lie?
If your data is clean, that, yes. So numbers, statistics, you can make look a lot of different ways, as we're seeing in our COVID world right now. So numbers don't lie if it's clean data.
If it's clean data. Well, and that's, the higher you go, the more the numbers give you, it's like a diagnostic, right? It tells you kind of the health. Are you on track with what your goals are? Those kinds of things. And they can show you quicker if you know how to read them when there might be a problem, right?
That is very true. Yes. Yeah. Think of your car, same idea, right? Check engine light comes on. You want those things before it seizes, and business is no different. The other thing that I've found, John, is that whether it's restoration business or it's the controls business or security, whatever, what people deal with are pretty much the same. It's very universal. Business is very universal. And at the heart of it, it's people. I mean, yes, numbers are a little different. There's nuances in different industries, but when it comes down to it, it really is people management more than anything.
Well, and as far as the numbers go, I think most people are aware, but it's surprising that still how many restoration companies don't manage their numbers or have an understanding. But I mean, you can be busy and losing your shirt, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And it's because a lot of times they say that like when a lot of people, when they start working out, right, they actually gain weight because like, well, I worked out today, I should treat myself. And then you actually overload on calories and counterproductive to what your goals are. I think the same thing in your busy season, you know, how often we got busy, we'll just buy it. We'll buy that. We'll buy this, you know, we need this. Okay. And so that can, if you're not tracking it, you know, that can be very dangerous. So you've got the, so you went GM, like a regional position, and then a VP position. I think that was then when you transitioned to, you left the industry for a short period of time. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
And then when you came back, you went back into the hallowed C-suite, right? You're strictly C-suite.
Well, I came back as a regional vice president, so I was overseeing Western Canada, and then recently, actually just last week, we bid farewell, which was a tearful moment, quite frankly, to our chief operating officer, Emmanuel Ricciardi, who I've worked with for the last 7 years. So, and best boss I've ever had. A big plug out to Emmanuel. Thank you for the time. So we took his role and we've split it into 2 senior vice president roles.
Oh wow. Well, you mentioned he's best boss I ever had. What are some of the things that you learned from him that that kind of shaped that opinion of his leadership?
We had similar backgrounds, so that helped. Is both Amanda and I came from outside of the industry, so we both saw what I would tell you, John, is we both saw corporate in kind of the same light. Is that there's some parts of being a big corporation which are very, very helpful, very helpful. So we brought a lot of structure. We brought a lot of governance to the table. We brought data and using data to make decisions. There's the flip side, of course, of being corporate, and a lot of times, and I saw it with Honeywell later in the years, is they start managing up too much, right? People are worried about where they are in the structure, maybe they're worried about getting things done. So I think the thing with Amandio and myself and the rest of the leadership team here is I think we struck the right balance between the corporate side and bringing the right structure and the right things to the team to make it more productive, to ensure that people are doing the right things. And on the other side, to keep that entrepreneurial spirit, back to what we were talking about leading leaders, is leaders are there for a reason, and they need to feel that autonomy. Sometimes they need the rope to hang themselves every now and again. You're still going to pick up the pieces, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you got to try it and fail. I mean, we do learn from our failures far more than our successes. So you have to let people do that. It's like child rearing in some cases. Is sometimes they do have to actually touch the stove before they figure it out. Yeah, because that's and that's always right. As much as we sell to the public and we're trying to generate work, if you're in a position of leadership, you have to sell that package to your team, right? Or else there's a disconnect between what the brand is marketing as their service distinctives and then what the teams are actually doing, right? And then if you're in a position where you want to affect change, you have to sell it up and you have to sell it down, right? So you have to always selling, always negotiating, always learning to better communicate. So, and are you still senior vice president of strategy and growth, or then has your that is the new role? So that started a couple months ago. So there was a little overlap there, John. So we changed structure back in the beginning of February, and then, as I mentioned, Emmanuel left last week, and we had a terrific going away for him. Just can't say enough. He just did a tremendous job at leading his company.
Very cool. Well, so let's just to make sure that we kind of dial in for people listening that are whatever level they're at, wanting to advance their career, wanting to know, hey, I want to get into the C-suite, right? But I'm maybe a technician now, or a supervisor, or even just a GM, even a GM. What are some of those key things that you look for now at your level, and that have helped you during your career? Kind of not just, like you said, not just climbing the ladder, but really being a person that's developing your career and earning those spots.
Well, as I mentioned, learn finance, learn the language of finance, the language of business. That is critical, or you will hit a ceiling quite quickly. So know your numbers. But the biggest thing, John, is help other people be successful. Nothing is more encouraging from any leadership point of view than somebody being selflessly trying to help the team. And for us, we talk team all the time. So there's seldom a week that would go by here, John, where we don't have somebody from one office into another helping out. It's just we're an organization of 40 offices with 1,500 people. And of course, the weather's different across the continent. And so there's almost always, somebody struggling under too much work, or a PM that is left, or a BM that is left. So we're moving bodies around all the time. And it's the people that put their hands up first that quite frankly get noticed, certainly by the upper management.
So I'm not sure if you are aware, but the DYOJO stands for the Do Your Own Job Dojo, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe you would or wouldn't agree with this. I think the key to a team is, number one, that everybody's doing their own job, right? Like if you and I are on a team, and you said trust, the speed of trust, the quickest way I think that we can make or break trust, if I look at you, I don't even have to like you, but if I know you're doing your job, you're handling your responsibilities, and doing it in an ethical, respectable way, I don't have to like you. I can work with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if constantly I'm seeing you're not doing things ethically, or you're handing off your stuff to other people, blaming others, I'm not going to trust you. And I could like you. You and I could be best friends, but if that's the way you handle your work, we're not going to have any trust for each other. Do you think that's, would you agree with that statement? The core of a team is that everybody does their job.
For sure. Yeah. And you have to recognize the job they're doing, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a learning early on when I first moved into management with Honeywell. And I made the mistake, and again, we do learn from our mistakes. I made the mistake of calling one of our top salespeople, and he really was very, very good at what he did. And I unloaded on him on a voicemail, just unloaded, which is, again, totally foreign for me. Anger is not an emotion of mine, frankly. And this is over 20 years ago. But eventually, I was made the district general manager, and he reported to me. And he had made a big deal of this and stuff, and it went around the organization that, I'd unloaded on him and blah, blah, blah. It was all bad, very embarrassing for me personally.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because people said when I took over the district role, and he's now reporting to me, oh, he must be worried you're going to fire him or you're going to do something to him. And I was, are you crazy? Again, back to the like point of view. I don't have to like him. That's fine. And there was, we made up. I should mention that we had we got together, we talked it out, all good, right? We solved our problems, but we weren't going to go for a beer every night after.
Right.
Happened. But in the end, again, I put him on a pedestal. I did everything I could to continue to make him successful, and he's become a very successful leader in his own right, and is a fantastic leader. But early on, it was one of those things. What you said, I don't have to like him. I do trust he's going to do the right thing. So.
Yeah. That's critical. And on the flip side of that, I think some people, there's obviously people that can, everything can be taken to extreme, right? So if you're selfless and helping people, number one, if you're not handling your own responsibilities, you don't really have any business helping other people, because your job for the organization, for the health of the team, is to handle your business. And then also some people can manipulate that. It's important to understand. It's important to distinguish. And I think that's a key to advancing as in the role of leadership, is understanding when someone really does need help, or when you need to say no, right? To say,
for sure that,
you're good.
It's one I talk, and you're right. So you know, I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful group of selfless leaders here. But one of the key things that I do mention to people, and I was told myself in one of my early performance reviews, is it's nice to be the go-to person. People, you know, that feels good, right? And you like, you know, some of us really like helping other people out. But eventually, yes, you have to learn to say no. There will be a point where you're getting crushed, and to your point, your core responsibilities are now starting to fail. You have to say no, and that is a difficult thing for people to learn.
Well, I think as a leader in a position of leadership too, you have to know when to, like a coach, right? A good sports coach knows, no, you need to push, or hey, you need to ice it. You know, however, man, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed our conversation not that long ago, and glad we were able to kind of formally get some things down and documented. Again, thinking of people that are listening, that whether they're trying to develop their career or help others, maybe they're in a position of leadership trying to help others. Any other closing thoughts or things we might have missed?
Sure. If somebody's out there, now my plug, if somebody's out there looking to join a winning team, love to have you. Feel free to reach out to me directly, because we continue to build out and take the world by the arm. So, and
currently only in Canada?
Currently, yes. So we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Intact Financial, and Intact Financial is in the mode of purchasing or closing out on the purchase of RSA, which will open up the UK and Irish markets as well as others throughout the world. So currently we are only in Canada, but our intent is to expand accordingly.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. I really like that. The nothing quicker than the speed of trust, and then as you touched on several times, the language of finance. Maybe could you speak to that just in closing? Language of finance. What's a good way, if somebody doesn't know where to start, where's a good place to start to kind of build up your business financial acumen?
Well, I mean, Google's got a lot available, but I would tell you to start reading annual reports and start looking at investment sites. So, you know, you mentioned it earlier, especially in a public company, but even in a privately held company, is if you start reading through some annual reports, you'll see how, again, you will see the language of business. You will start to learn about balance sheets and about cash flows. So that's where I would start, John. And again, educate yourself, to take responsibility for your own career.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much, Doug. Thank you for carving out some time for us, and thank you for propping up the book. And hopefully we'll be able to, we're not that far from each other. Hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person sometime soon.
For sure. Pleasure, John. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Well, sweet. All right. That is a wrap to, what we got going on for today. I had some time. Jarrett Steer from the GMS podcast is in town now. In town. He's about at least an hour north of us. But he is going to be, along with our good friends, the Blue Collar Nation podcast, Eric and Larry. They're going to be at the Experience there in Carolina. Jarrett is taking some of our swag and DYOJO swag, and he's going to have that at his desk there at the Experience. He's recording live, the GMS podcast live from the Experience in his booth. And so make sure to check him out if you're headed that way. Check out the GMS podcast. As we mentioned at the ad break, the benchmarks of growth. We just released the one with Lisa last week. Lisa Lavender and Gordy Powell is coming up next week. We got 6 of those in the bag. We're getting ready. Let's see. At the beginning of May, we're going to be talking about industry standards. So we just had the call where we revealed our mystery guest, Pete Consigli, the industry watchdog. And Ed Cross talked about some recent advancements and wins with regards to defending the rights to use AOB. Like we mentioned, there's plenty of contractors that, especially if you're in Florida and seeing firsthand kind of the mess there, that have objections to it. But the encouragement there is not necessarily to throw the baby out with the bathwater and don't respond to one extreme with another, even if you don't view it as being used for every claim. But as Pete brought up, part of that broader context, we're going to be talking about the standards of care. So not saying that this is the only, but this is certainly an in-depth resource. Ken Larson was on the show. So he makes the content of this book can easily be misunderstood, and this helps frame some of the conversation. There's the standard of practice, which is used to describe practices normally and regularly performed by professionals of a trade. A standard practice can vary significantly by geographic reason, and they may or may not reflect competence. Whereas the standard of care, which in our industry, obviously, IICRCS 500 is kind of the consensus body standard that we often refer to, are practices that are common to reasonably prudent members of the trade who are recognized in the industry as qualified and competent. And then there's state of the art, which refers to the highest level of general development as of a device, technique, or scientific field achieved at a particular time. It also refers to the level of development reached at any particular time as a result of the common methodologies employed. So this is a great resource if you're especially not in the mitigation world. Ken Larson's Leadership in Restorative Drying. So Ken's going to be one of the guests. We got Ken Larson, Pete Consigli's coming back, John Downey's coming back, and we have another special guest, a legacy person that will be joining us for that conversation. So it's a show you're not going to want to miss. But thank you so much for listening to the DYOJO podcast. As always, our goal here is to help you shorten your dang learning curve. The Ironclad restoration marketing team has certainly done that with their No BS guide. We got our nice bookie books for the reading list, and so let's get out of here. Let's be done with this. This is we've gone on long enough. This is let's get out of here.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.